Apparently, love relationships are the greatest sources of joy for people and are also responsible for many mental health issues. But some people are not meant to stay in our lives. Sometimes the best thing we can do is to walk away and move forward to happier roads. Nonetheless, there are people who just can't take no for an answer, and they feel it's easier to do the unthinkable than to handle a breakup and see their person move on from them. Today, we are going to be unraveling the story of Jodi Arias, who stabbed to death her ex-boyfriend Travis Alexender. Many believe she's a cold-hearted killer, but others defend her to this day and are convinced that Jodi didn't get a fair trial and that the media ruined any chance of Jodi getting justice. So what is the truth? Let's find out. Jodi was born in California in 1980 and had a fairly normal childhood. She was doing very well in school and liked reading a lot. Her hobby was photography and she wanted to turn it into a career one day. But it seems that things weren't quite so ideal behind closed doors. Jodi claimed that as she grew older, her childhood days were marked with abuse. She said that her parents were tougher as time went by and used to beat her with a belt and wooden spoons. She also claimed that things became so harmful and volatile at home that she moved out of her parents' house and moved in with her older boyfriend after she dropped out of high school during her junior year. According to her parents, after she left home, she became mentally unwell to the point that her friends would call Jodi's mother to inform her that her daughter needs some help. Travis also had a difficult childhood. He grew up with an extremely abusive and drug-addicted mother and father. He maintained a blog called Travis Alexender's Being Better blog, where he wrote, "It was a very tough life living with our mother. We kind of fended for ourselves. We would eat what was there, but before long what was edible would be eaten or rot, and then what was rotten would be eaten too." Eventually, Travis's grandmother took him and his siblings in. She gave them a much better life and involved them in the Mormon church activities. Travis became very invested into his Mormon faith. He had lots of friends, and occasionally he was a motivational speaker. At some moment, he started working for a network marketing company called Prepaid Legal Services, and he became a successful salesman. Jodi was also looking for opportunities with the same company. She met Travis at a company convention in Las Vegas in September 2006. She was set up with him as a blind date by their friends. Their connection was instant. There was a strong chemistry between them. Jodi was a beautiful blonde, friendly, well-spoken, and Travis was smitten by her beauty. Jodi and Travis were really excited about the relationship, and Travis thought that he found his wife and this is the girl he would marry. Although they lived in different states, he was in Arizona and she was in California, they maintained a long-distance relationship for a few months. They traveled together and Jodi documented online the time that they spent with each other, posting photos on social media. Travis was deeply involved in his faith as a Mormon, and for Mormons, sexual activity outside marriage is forbidden. So he started to feel guilty because the two were having premarital sex. So Jodi decided to convert to Mormonism for him. He baptized her. But Travis wanted to marry a virgin, a pure Mormon girl, and Jodi, by having sex with him, already eliminated herself as ever being marriage potential. Also, as time went by, Jodi became very possessive of him. His friends said that she would follow him to the bathroom and stand outside the door, or she would listen to his conversations. Also, she would go through his cell phone as well as his emails and social media accounts. Travis told his friends that her jealousy was too hard to deal with, so after 5 months together, they broke up. Few weeks later, Jodi moved to his city, just 5 miles away from where he was living. Although Travis made it very clear that he was not marrying her, Jodi couldn't move on. She would show up to his house unannounced and let herself in through the garage door because she knew the code. According to Travis's friends, sometimes he would be angry, but most of the times he would jump into bed with her and they would have sex. Meanwhile, Travis began dating other women, but Jodi would hide in the bushes in front of his house trying to find out who these girls were, and then she would threaten them or scare them in some way. Travis many times asked her to stop all these things, so after living for 8 months in his city, she decided to return to her family in California. Despite this change, Jodi and Travis continued communicating via phone and texts and were often engaging in phone sex. In June 2008, Travis wanted to go on a trip to Cancun with the Mormon girl he was pursuing named Mimi, but he never got there. It had been 5 days since his friends had heard from him, so they grew worried and decided to go to his home to check on him. A friend gave them the garage code to get them into the house, and just as they went inside, they felt this horrid smell. One of his roommates was home but thought Travis was supposed to be in Cancun, and that's why they let his room go unchecked. So they opened the door to Travis's room, finding blood everywhere, and then they discovered his body crumpled up in the shower. The bad smell came from the rotting human flesh. His body was decomposing. They immediately called 911.
Oh my God. 911 emergency? A friend of ours was dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. His roommate just went in there and said there's lots of blood.
Have you been threatened by anyone recently?
Yes, he has.
Okay.
He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that. Her name is Jodi.
Detective Flores arrived at the crime scene. He said that the first thing he thought was that this was deeply personal and that somebody wanted to make sure that he is dead. He had been stabbed more than 27 times. His throat had been cut from one end to the other, and he had also been shot in the head. The detectives didn't find any forced entry to the home, so they thought it had to be someone that Travis knew. Investigators looked at his roommates first because it seemed suspicious that they didn't notice that anything had happened in their home, but they were eventually cleared. Police interviewed a lot of Travis's friends and also Jodi. She told the investigators that they had a relation but they were broken up. She also explained that she was on a road trip to see a new guy she was dating and that she had spoken briefly to Travis the day he was killed, but she denied being in Arizona at the time of his crime. Police found a bloody palm print outside of Travis's bedroom, long brown hairs on the floor and a camera in the washing machine. On the memory card of the camera, computer forensic investigators found photographs of Travis and Jodi, which according to detectives, they were time-stamped from the day of the murder. Travis and Jodi many times were doing private photo shoots together. Everything seems normal in the photos. But then there is this last picture which investigators believe it was taken before Travis was killed. The police officers considered they had hard evidence against Jodi, so they traveled to California to arrest her. During her police interrogations, Jodi told 3 different versions of the crime. Here's version number 1. She denied killing Travis and she said she would never hurt him. She denied being in Arizona at the time of his crime. She also explained that she was on a road trip to see her new love interest, Ryan Burns. But the problem was that Ryan expected her on June 4th, but she arrived a day later. She told police that her phone had died and she had gotten lost on the road. As Detective Flores was questioning her, he showed Jodi graphic photos of her and Travis just hours before he had been killed, but she continued to deny any involvement in the crime. So finally the detective shows her all the evidence that they had against her.
If I could show you proof you were there.
I wasn't there.
Can you be honest with me, Jodi?
I was not at Travis's house. Was not.
You were at Travis's house. You guys had a sexual encounter. Which, there's pictures.
Are you sure those pictures aren't from another time?
Positive. Absolutely positive. It's absolutely over. You need to tell me the truth.
Listen, the truth is I did not hurt Travis.
Jodi spent that night in jail and she had time to understand that there is no way to say she didn't go to Travis's house, so she starts to change her story a little. Now we have version number 2 of the story. She admits that she arrived to Travis's house around 3 a.m. and witnessed someone else murder Travis. She said they had a sexual encounter and they were doing pictures, and then suddenly 2 masked intruders broke into the house and attacked them. They wanted to kill her because she was a witness, but somehow she managed to run from the house. She kept quiet because she was so scared that she would get murdered by these people. Authorities didn't believe her and they thought this was just another story told to match the evidence of 2 people being there. She was charged with first-degree murder and remained in prison for more than 4 years while awaiting trial. In January 2013, her trial started. The case already had so much publicity before the trial even began. The courtroom was completely filled. People even flew in from other states to see this trial. The prosecution argued that what made Jodi murder Travis was that Cancun trip he was supposed to do with Mimi Hall. They said that most likely Jodi tried to convince Travis to take her on that trip instead of his new girlfriend, but when she saw that Travis would not change his mind, decided that he made the ultimate mistake and therefore he was to pay with his life for it. They said she killed Travis in cold blood because she could not tolerate to be brushed aside, and that she decided that if she couldn't have him, then no one else could be with him. The prosecution portrayed Jodi as someone that killed for revenge and was convinced she could fool everyone. They said there was evidence that Jodi premeditated the murder. She brought with her a knife, a gun, and 2 full petrol cans to avoid stopping and being filmed by petrol station cameras so that her extensive traveling across states couldn't be discovered. On the witness stand, Jodi told an entirely different story than the 2 previous ones she had told investigators. So here comes another version of the crime. She testified to killing Travis but claimed that it was done in self-defense after he became angry when she dropped the camera that authorities later found in the washing machine. But it seems that the self-defense plea didn't come from Jodi. Her lawyer Nermi Kirk, as the lead counsel on the case, pushed the self-defense strategy against the rest of the defense team and against Jodi's wishes. Nermi initially thought that there was blood DNA evidence that puts Jodi with Travis when he died, and this would result in a guilty verdict, but it seems that there was no such evidence. With the death penalty as a possible result, Jodi reluctantly went along with her lawyer's self-defense ploy. She also claimed Travis abused her on several previous occasions. They also said that she was abused by her parents and also had a series of abusive boyfriends. The defense team also said that Travis was not a saint as everyone thought. They said they wonder how can someone call himself a motivational speaker and a good Virgin Mormon, and at the same time date one woman while having sex on the sidelines with the other, in total disregard of their feelings. They showed that Travis called Jodi a lot too, and he was engaging in dirty phone talk, which Jodi recorded secretly. They said that Travis used the idea of love to gain sex, and that he intentionally misled Jodi to hope for their future relationship. They argued that he manipulated her just to have sex whenever he felt like it, and then treated her like a discardable object. They also claimed that she was a victim of a narcissistic person who abused her emotionally, mentally, and hurt her really bad until she couldn't take it anymore and snapped. The defense also brought up one of Travis's exes to the stand. Her name was Lisa Andrews. She said that Travis had inappropriate behaviors towards her.
Did you talk to him about that sometimes you felt that he wanted you just for your body?
I did say that in the email.
And that your kisses didn't mean anything to him?
I did say that in the email.
That you felt that it was a way for him to let out some sexual tension?
I did say that in the email.
That he had so much of?
Again, I said that.
Did that make you feel used and dirty?
I did say that in the email.
And that if he truly cared for you, did you tell him that it wouldn't have been about passion and lust? Do you remember telling him that you had previously told him to not grab your butt?
Yes.
And especially not in public?
Yes.
But that he persisted in doing it?
Yes.
Did it make you feel like he wasn't really listening to you?
At the time, yes.
In May 2013, the jury found Jodi guilty of first-degree murder. People were so happy about this verdict, especially Travis's family. The trial jury hung on the death penalty, so it was declared a mistrial. In the second trial, it was still hung jury, so another mistrial was declared. At this point, Arizona state law says that the judge will do the sentencing, so they don't have to do another trial. So after 2 juries could not agree on whether to sentence her to death, a judge sentenced Jodi to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The court finds the mitigation presented is not sufficiently substantial to call for leniency and that a natural life sentence is appropriate. It is ordered the defendant shall be incarcerated in the Department of Corrections for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
Her lawyer Nermi Kirk tried multiple times to leave the case during litigation but was not allowed by court. Later he got cancer and healed from it. He believes his illness was caused by all the stress he endured during Jodi's trial. He wrote a book called Trapped with Miss Arias. In 2017, Jodi filed a civil lawsuit against Nermi, accusing him that his book violated the lawyer-client privilege. Jodi has been called the most hated woman in US, and many are convinced that she is just a pretty face with a dark heart. But there are a surprising number of people that defend her to this day and show her love and support. Let me know your thoughts on this case, and don't forget to subscribe. Stay safe.